Good morning, Van Heist kindergarten friends. It's Miss Butler, and today we are going to read another book, but this time we're going to read a different kind of book. Up to now, we've been reading a lot of stories, and it's easy to make predictions in stories about what might happen next. But storybooks, fiction, aren't the only kind of books that are fun to read. There are also books that are full of facts. The stories aren't made up, they're real things that have happened. And that's what we're going to work on this week. We're going to look at some books that are full of interesting facts. That doesn't mean that we're not going to make predictions about them. We're just going to make a different kind of prediction. Instead of trying to imagine what might happen next, we're going to think about facts we already know that might be in the book and whether or not we're learning a new fact. So, as we read, think about things you might already know about this topic and when you're learning something new. So, I'm going to show you the book, see if you can tell what this is going to be. The book is called Coral Reef. See the natural world of a coral reef as never before. So, this is a book all about animals that are living in the coral reef. Can you imagine? Can you guess what animals might be in this book? Do you see some on the cover that you might already recognize? Maybe you already recognize the seahorse. Do you know some facts about seahorses? Or this looks like a shrimp. It's very red. Over here we have maybe a squid and fish. Before we read this book, think about what you might know about a coral reef, which is in the ocean, and about some of the animals and plants that live on a coral reef. Do you think some of those facts will be in this book? Do you think you might learn something new? As we start to read, when you hear something that you already knew, you can give a thumbs up. Whoop, there's my thumb. When you learn something new, maybe you can just go, wow, new facts. Thinking about what you already know and adding to what you already know with new facts is a great way to understand the book and to learn new things. So let's read about the coral reef. A lot of creatures on this page. Life on a coral reef. The coral reef teems with rich variety of life, from spotted shrimp and frilly sea slugs to giant clams and schools of brightly colored fish. A coral reef takes thousands of years to form. It is built up from the skeletons of tiny animals called coral. Corals can only survive in clean, warm, salty water that is shallow enough to allow sunlight to reach it. So there are only a few places in the world where there are coral reefs. They're not everywhere. They need special conditions to exist. Coral reefs all over the world are threatened, mainly because of pollution and overfishing. So, threatened means that they are in danger of not surviving because there's pollution in the water, or maybe people are catching too many fish. We must protect the coral reefs if the animals and plants that live on them are to survive. So, look at some of the animals. Some of them were on the cover, remember? Did you think we might see the seahorse and a giant blue clam? There's a hermit crab. Oh, maybe you recognize this fish. It's like Nemo. It's called a clownfish. There's a sea slug. There's that shrimp, sea cucumber. This is called grape coral, maybe because these circles look like grapes. There's the grown-up adult emperor angelfish, and there's what it looks like when it's still a baby. This one is called a mandarin fish. I bet you know what that is. It's got 8 tentacles. Yep, it's a squid. I'm actually an octopus. So this book has lots about each of the animals on this page, but we don't have time to read about all of them. So I chose one that I thought you might be especially interested in learning about. There it is. It's the clownfish. Remember from the movie Finding Nemo? Before we read, stop and think what you might already know about clownfish. Let's see if any of those things you know are in the book, or if you're going to be finding out some new facts to learn about. Coral reef friends. Ooh, I'm interested. Friends? I wonder if this is about what kind of friends the clownfish might have. Clownfish live on the coral reef in harmony with another creature called the sea anemone. My goodness, in harmony means they live together helping each other. So interesting, it's not clownfish living together, it's about the clownfish living with a sea anemone. Sea anemones are related to corals and jellyfish, and they have poisonous tentacles for stinging their prey. Wonder how the clownfish is friends with a creature that stings. At the first sign of danger, a clownfish darts into the anemone's tentacles for safety. To protect itself from the poison, the clownfish produces a layer of slimy mucus, like what comes out of your nose, but it covers the whole clownfish, its whole body, to protect itself from being stung. In return for protection from the tentacles, the fish frightens enemies away from the anemone. The clownfish also lays its eggs and rears its young among the tentacles. So, rearing its young means it raises its babies. Its babies live among the tentacles of the anemone. So, see all of these little kind of look like fat spaghetti coming out? Those are the tentacles of the anemone. And that's where the fish can hide because if you touch those tentacles, you'll get a sting. Um, let's see. Some anemones lay eggs. So this anemone itself could lay eggs, but others are able to make smaller versions of themselves by dividing their bodies into, oh my goodness. So instead of laying eggs, some anemones just split in half and make doubles of themselves, and that's how they reproduce. So let's see what else we can learn. Were there any things in here that you already knew about clownfish? Did you already know that they live with sea anemones? Was that new to you? Up here, it says that sea anemones and clownfish, the clownfish are always with the sea anemone. You'll never find a clownfish without sea anemone, but the sea anemone can live without the clownfish. Why do you think that might be? Why do you think the clownfish might need the sea anemone to survive? Maybe part of the answer is down here. This section talks about the bright colors on the clownfish. So those bright colors mean that the clownfish can't hide. He's very bright. So he doesn't have the protection of hiding, he has to use the sea anemone for protection. So maybe if he's not with the sea anemone, other fish will be able to see him easily and just bite him. It says the clownfish's bright colors mean that it can't hide from enemies, but it can escape by swimming among the tentacles of the anemone, which make it hard to catch. The colors and patterns of the fish might warn predators of the anemone's poisonous tentacles and keep both animals safe. So those bright colors, the animals that might want to eat the clownfish say, oh, I remember you. You're the one who's always near those stinging tentacles. I'm not going to eat you at all. Interesting facts. So I hope you learned some new things about some of the creatures that live in the coral reef. Maybe there were things you already knew. Maybe you learned more. When we're reading books of nonfiction, that is, books that are true and have facts, we don't predict what's going to happen next. Instead, we think about the facts that we already know and see if they're in the book. Then we notice when we're learning something new. That is a great way to understand and learn more. I hope you enjoyed this book about the coral reef. All week long, we are going to be learning about the ocean and maybe learning some new facts. Talk to you next time.